their calls phonetically.
Understood.
Thank you.
Still have 3 minutes.
It's good to see you, Phil. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. How you doing?
Well, yourself?
Embracing the crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably an interesting position. There's no doubt about it.
It's been a lot of fun. I have no complaints.
That's terrific. That's
Except
great.
the pay sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that. That's for sure. All right, I'll let you get at it.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Good to see you.
Got a question.
Yes.
I've got a friend of mine who's a ham radio operator that I haven't been able to track down. His call was VE3 NET. He was in the Hamilton area. Name was Mike Hall. I haven't been able to track him down, and I know the call is not to his anymore. I'm just wondering, he used to work for Atomic Energy Canada. I'm just wondering if anybody happen to know anything about him.
Sorry, what's the name?
Mike Hall, and his call was VE3 NET.
Mike Hall, H-A-L-L?
HALL.
Oh, okay.
I've tried to track him down. I've even tried to track his son down. And haven't been able to find him either, or his wife. His wife was a nurse at the Hamilton Hospital.
So did he work at ACL in Oakville?
No, he worked right in Toronto for Atomic Energy Canada.
Oh, okay.
He did do a stint in China when Canada sold nuclear reactors to them. That's a long time ago.
Korea, maybe?
Well, that's it. I don't know. He may have gone somewhere else too, if they've
I don't-
sold nuclear reactors to somebody else or servicing them.
They built a reactor in South Korea.
Well, they did build one in China too.
Mike Hall.
Mr. President, it's 4 o'clock Eastern time, 1 o'clock Pacific time, and I can give you all the rest of the time zones, and 5:30 in Newfoundland, of course.
Oh. But most importantly, it's 2000 Zulu. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 p.m. It is 4 p.m. Eastern time. It is 2000 Zulu. And at this time, I would like to convene the annual general meeting for the year 2022 for the Radio Amateurs of Canada. I'd like to welcome everyone here. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us for the conference. Before we continue, I would like to take a moment of silence for all of those who became silent key this year. Thank you. I would like Trish, if you could move the I'd like to welcome everyone here. I'd like to welcome the members of the organization, as well as the members of the board of directors, the executive, and the various volunteers that make RAC run. Without the work of these people, this organization would not be what it is today, would not be able to do the vital work that we do for the amateur radio service in Canada. So I'd like to thank you, like everyone, for being a member and for supporting us, and to those who volunteer. Thank you for giving your time to us and enabling us to do this work. Moving on. Before we get into the president's report, we need to review and have a motion to and adopt a motion to adopt the minutes. So if you could please display the minutes from the last meeting. On the screen are the minutes of the last AGM, which occurred online on Sunday, September the 19th, 2021. I will say here that there are going to be some motions of which we will ask for movers, seconders, and ask for voters. I would ask that only members of RAC be involved in that process. So if anyone reading the minutes would like to make a motion to adopt the minutes as read, I would ask that you raise your hand by clicking on the raising your hand icon. I have Brian, VE3XNS, go ahead. Brian, you have to unmute and make the motion.
Yeah, I'm just working on that there. I'm on an iPad. I make a motion we accept the minutes as displayed here on the screen.
Thank you very much. That was Brian. For Al, that's Victor Echo 3 X-ray November Sierra. There was a Chris Carpenter that came up. Were you seconding? We didn't hear you, sir.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Chris, do you have a call sign?
Victor Echo 7 Uniform Tango Victor.
Victor Echo 7 Uniform Tango Victor. Did you get that, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish, could you run the poll, please?
Yes, 1 second. And just note that it has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the annual general meeting held September 19th, 2021. If you're a RAC member, please vote now.
Hello.
At 10 more seconds. And ending the poll. And Dave, I acknowledge that David Rosenfeld has put up his hand to agree. And to share the results with you.
Based on the poll results, I declare the motion adopted, and I declare that order of business closed. So moving on, I have a report to give to the membership. It is a report that, unlike most things, I give most of my reports off the cuff, but this is a written report, and this report will appear in TCA in the next issue. So I will read from the report for the membership. Once every year, Radio Amateurs of Canada's bylaws require the corporation to hold an annual general meeting. The reason that not-for-profit corporations hold these meetings is to give the members the opportunity to see for themselves the state of their organization, to be informed of the corporation's financial status, take an active part in changes to bylaws, and give them a direct line to their executive and their board of directors. One of the components of our annual general meetings is the president's report, given at the beginning of the meeting, and it is meant to detail the state of the organization, outline its achievements, describe its challenges, and more generally discuss the state of amateur radio in Canada. The last 30 months have seen tremendous upheaval with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020, but we now seem to be on the other side of that disaster and are seeing a return to normalcy, both at RAC and within the greater amateur radio community. However, the hardships of the recent past have provided for unprecedented innovation that, I believe, will leave a lasting positive impact on the organization and the service. Now, speaking specifically about RAC, our organization is in good health. As you will see shortly, our finances have been judiciously managed and maintained. We have reserves to sustain us through hard times should they come, and revenue to maintain the services that we provide to our members and the community at large. Our organization is in good hands. We have a full slate of enthusiastic volunteers comprising our board of directors, national executive, and various committees, with others seeking to volunteer their time to furthering RAC and amateur radio as a whole. And our organization is fulfilling its mandate. The primary reason for the existence of Radio Amateurs of Canada is to interface with all three levels of government and work to protect our ability to operate. From erecting towers to operating mobile to the defense and expansion of spectrum, Radio Amateurs of Canada has had many wins over the last several years, and we will continue to work with governments and government agencies to ensure our ability to thrive. The past year has seen some changes within the organization. Specifically, on a few points, the board of directors has established several new standing committees, and there are 5 of them, namely the Marketing and Product Development Committee, the Examination Standards Committee, the Domestic Satellite Coordination Committee, the Electromagnetic Compatibility Committee, and the National Field Services Advisory Committee. Our organization is almost exclusively volunteer run, and the breadth of the work that we do is limited only by the number of people willing to step up and offer their time and their skills for its betterment. Over the next few months, we will be asking members to join us in staffing these new committees to further RAC's work. We've also begun a reimagining and reorganization of the National Field Organization, thanks to the tireless work of our Community Services Officer and his cadre of dedicated volunteers. These changes have been years in the coming and will start to be implemented at the beginning of 2023. RAC continues to be active in the amateur radio on several fronts. We are continuing to offer basic and advanced amateur radio courses via telepresence. This was something we started at the outset of the pandemic, but have decided to continue as a regular offering. The vastness of our country is one of the greatest barriers to becoming involved in amateur radio. RAC's offering of national education services and the continued ability for accredited examiners to provide services via telepresence gives those in remote and less populated areas of Canada the ability to join our community. Rumors of the demise of amateur radio as a public service tool have been greatly exaggerated. We have seen a renewed interest in the amateur radio service from government and non-governmental organizations alike. Specifically, these agencies see amateur radio as a viable communication service that can be utilized for domestic humanitarian aid. As a result, RAC has been invited to sit on various committees and become a member of consortiums and other non-governmental organizations, involved in disaster relief that interface with government. We continue to regularly interface with Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, traditionally known by everyone as ISED, our regulator, through regular meetings of the Canadian Amateur Radio Advisory Board. We are continuing to engage directly with Canadian radio amateurs, most recently in the form of a survey about RIC 9, call sign policy and special event prefixes, the document defining the use and procedures around call signs. In addition, ISED recently updated RBR 4, named Standards for the Operation of Radio Stations in the Amateur Radio Service, which is the regulatory document that defines amateur radio in Canada, which gave us access to the new 630 meter band and the new 15 kilohertz segment at 60 meters. The Canadian Space Agency is getting ready to announce another round of funding for Canadian universities who want to develop satellites for launch and deployment. Under International Telecommunication Union regulations, the International Amateur Radio Union, or the IARU, is responsible for coordinating frequencies in the amateur satellite service. An endorsement from the IARU National Member Organization is a requirement for application. As previously mentioned, RAC has formed a committee dedicated to working with domestic entities who seek access to the amateur radio satellites, the amateur satellite service. On the international front, we continue to be directly involved and at the table. Our team of representatives continue to prepare for the next World Radio Conference, WRC 23, to continue the fight to protect our spectrum. Getting youth involved in amateur radio is seen as one of the most important things we can do to ensure the continued viability of our community. It is my pleasure to announce that RAC will be hosting a Region 2 Youth on the Air Camp at Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario in July of 2023. More details about this undertaking will be forthcoming, but we look forward to the opportunity to help shape the next generation of radio amateurs. As you can see, RAC is working hard to ensure that our service remains relevant and viable for the generations that follow. However, there are many among us that have the idea that amateur radio is dying, or that our numbers are dwindling, or that we are made up of a group of people of a certain age. I'm happy to report that nothing further could be from the truth. In Canada, amateur radio has been growing at an average of 2% per year for the past 9 years. That doesn't sound like a lot, but in comparison, the growth of Canada's population over the same period is 0.9%. So amateur radio has been growing steadily at a rate of double that of the Canadian population. Now, that aside, it cannot be denied that there is a lot of gray hair in the hobby, or where there's hair at all. However, since I was licensed in 1994, the median age of a Canadian has gone from 34.4 to 41.1 years old. That's a 6.5-year increase in 28 years. It is reasonable to expect that the same will be seen among our ranks, but this also represents a problem that goes far beyond that of just amateur radio. Now, additionally, while there is a lot of focus on getting youth involved in amateur radio, as we've talked about a lot today, we can't ignore those from other age groups entering the hobby. Amateur radio is a great venture for those approaching retirement or for those whose children have fled the nest. It keeps the mind sharp, which becomes even more important as we approach our senior years. Now, RAC also did a more general survey of Canadian radio amateurs a few years ago, and I expect we'll do another one again soon so that we can start to compare results. There are also those working in the background with us to compile the data that we have in order to better understand our population so that we may better direct our resources and do so more efficiently. RAC's greatest challenge has always been membership. We estimate that only 15 to 20% of Canadian radio amateurs are members of the organization. More members means more revenue and more potential volunteers, which means the ability to expand our services and offerings. For those individuals and clubs who support us, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You're the ones who make it possible for us to do this important work. In conclusion, I can happily report that our organization is on solid ground with great prospects for the future, and that the amateur radio service in Canada is healthy and vibrant. We will stay the course and work for the continued growth and success of Radio Amateurs of Canada, and as a whole, the amateur radio service. That concludes my report. Just give me a moment. So the next order of business, I believe, are the 2021 financial statements. This is usually the most important part of any not-for-profit corporation's meeting. It's to make sure that you, the members, know where your money is going and what it's doing, and to make sure that, and to show you that it's in good hands. So with that, I will turn this part of the presentation over to Margaret Tidman, who is RAC's treasurer. Go ahead, Margaret.
Good afternoon, everyone. Trish, if you could pull up the balance sheet, please. All right, so I know this is probably the most boring part of the event, so I will try to make this short and sweet. I've tried to put a quick little summary together just to kind of summarize where we are. So as Phil said, we are on pretty good ground right now in terms of finances. At the end of 2021, we had roughly $375,000 in cash and investments, which is plenty to cover any of our existing payables and future liabilities for deferred revenue and program revenue, such as DARF and the youth education program. The open accounts receivable and accounts receivable from the end of 2021 was mostly related to the insurance for 2022, which began being invoiced in November. Most of that has now been collected. Opening balance, or the opening accounts receivable and accrued liabilities at December that are showing on the books have now all been paid. So that has all been cleared. That's pretty much the highlights for this. I don't know if we're going to entertain questions now or after. Phil, do you have a feeling on that?
I would recommend that you go through the statement, and if anyone has any questions at the end of the statement before a motion, we can then entertain them.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, then we'll move on to the income statement. All right, so as you can see, the membership numbers down a little bit. It's just mostly to do with the multi-years that cross over years. Our numbers have not really declined over this last year from 2020 to 2021. However, if you look at the total revenue, the number really has not decreased very much. Additionally, if we remove the $10,000 government assistance, which was a one-time extraordinary item, we actually landed in a better position in 2021 than in 2020 by roughly about $3,400. As you can see, our expenses are extremely stable from year to year. Although they change a little bit between the different areas, we are pretty stable in that area. And the most important part is that at the end of 2021, we ended with a reserve of $33,735. So this puts us into a really good position, like Phil said, in terms of having money for future activities, to do new events and things to encourage youth, new members, and to retain new hams. So with that, that's all I have to say on that. Is there any specific questions from anybody?
If anyone's coming up with the questions, go ahead. I just like to make a couple of things. Number one, those statements will be in the next copy of TCA for anyone's perusal, as they are after every AGM. And it should be noted that we have gone, knock on wood, we have gotten through the years of the pandemic. As an organization, just as an organization, we have come through the years of the pandemic basically unscathed. And being involved in a couple of other NFPs that did not do so well, we did really well. I'm very, very happy with how RAC fared over the last 30 months, which is a testament to the strength of the organization, the members and the volunteers that back us.
And also, if no one wants to bring up any questions here at the AGM, feel free to email me directly at treasurer@rac.ca, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
How is RAC's attendance at the international conference covered with no income through to DARF?
So I can explain that. So when the people donate to DARF, the money automatically goes into a deferred revenue account, which is on our balance sheet. And as the activities from DARF are, the conferences and whatnot are attended, then the expenses are taken out of that account, that reserve, and then the revenue is recorded at the same time so that they net out at the end of the year to zero from the revenue coming in from the reserve and the expenses going out to the attendees.
Are there any other questions on this? If not, I will ask that someone make a motion to adopt the financial statements as presented.
VE3SLD.
I got Barry Brousseau, VE3SLD moves. I see Derek Hay has his hand up. Derek?
VE4HAY seconds.
And Derek, VE4HAY seconds. Mr. Secretary, did you get that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We have a motion. We have a motion and a seconder to adopt the financial statements for 2021 as displayed. Trish, would you please run the poll?
Ten more seconds. And the poll is now closed.
With the unanimous vote, I declare that motion adopted, and I declare that order of business closed. Before we let Margaret go, let's move on to the next part of this. So every year, RAC has our, the reports that you have just been presented are audited financial statements. So they're not just what we're telling you. Though we retain an accounting firm, in this case, Baker Tilly. We provide them all our financial information. They ask us questions, they go through our books, and they audit our finances so that what we give to the membership is a third party vetted certified audit of what it's. So it's, just to gives the credibility of what we're showing you as the members. But that means that we have to adopt every year to choose an auditor. So we have been using Baker Tilly for the last several years, and I would like to entertain a motion to retain Baker Tilly as the auditors for the 2022 fiscal year. I have Ian Snow, VA3QT. Would you like to make the motion? Go ahead, sir.
I'll move that RAC appoint Baker Tilly as the auditors for the following fiscal year.
So that's Ian Snow, Victor Alpha 3 Quebec Tango. Do I have a seconder?
Sorry, Mr. President, you didn't ask for questions.
I beg your pardon?
There is a
I'm sorry,
question.
Mr.
Oh,
President.
I'm sorry. How many years has this auditor been retained by RAC? Margaret?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I can tell you that it's at least 10 years. From my understanding.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question. Thank you, Mr. President, through the president. It's my understanding that a number of years ago, some new rules came in. I'm not sure if it was Ontario or across the country, that for nonprofit organizations, they were not permitted to retain an auditor for more than a few years. I think there was a limit involved. And I can't remember all the details of that, but I do recall that a nonprofit I was involved with a number of years ago, the board of directors decided that they would change the auditors. There was a lot of people upset about it, but they said, well, we don't have a choice. Our hands are tied. We're not allowed to keep them any longer. So I'm just wondering if, Margaret, if you could speak to that, or Phil?
Actually, I would like to pass that question to RAC's legal counsel.
I'm not aware of any legal rules that provide for a limit on auditors. A particular association that I'm a member of has had the same auditors running now for 40 some odd years.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we have a motion. Well, we've had a move by Ian Snow, VA3QT. Can I have a seconder, please?
VO1 Hotel Papa, Frank.
Frank, VO1, Victor Oscar 1 Hotel Papa, seconds. Mr. Secretary, did you get that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Trish, could you run the poll, please?
Since we got time, Frank's last name.
Davis.
Thank you.
Okay.
I should remember that.
And the poll is now closed. Let me share the results. Please note that there was one hand up as part of the yes vote.
All right. With those results as displayed, I declare that motion adopted. And I declare that order of business closed. Thank you very much, Margaret. I appreciate it. And with that, if I could have the PowerPoint back up. So I would like now to entertain a motion to adjourn the formal meeting, and we'll move into a more informal Q&A. So if I could have someone move to adjourn the meeting.
Victor Echo 3 Lima Alpha Foxtrot. I'll make that motion.
Is that Victor Echo 3 Lima Alpha Foxtrot QSL?
QSL, name is Fred.
Can I get your last name, Fred?
Crow, Charlie, Romeo, Oscar, Whiskey, Echo.
Okay, thank you. Hiroshi, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Can you give Al your call sign, please?
Call sign Victor Alpha 7, Lima Echo Tango.
Thank you.
You have all that, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Trish, if you could run the poll, please.
Ten more seconds. And the poll is now closed.
And with that, with those results, I declare that motion adopted, and I declare that the 2022 AGM is closed and dismissed at 4:27 p.m. Eastern Time, 2026 Zulu or 2027 Zulu. I'd like to thank everyone for attending and for being part of this this meeting. Now, this is where I open myself to the shooting gallery. So if there are anyone here who have any questions of myself, of members of the executive, members of the board, about anything related to Radio Amateurs of Canada, and maybe perhaps to amateur radio in general, I'd be happy to take them. You can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat. Really?
I guess you did a good job, Phil.
Well, yeah, no, I see John VE1JS. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I just thought here, Phil, it'd be a good idea. I hadn't seen anything in print that you're looking for a new awards manager.
Yes.
And just so everyone knows, I have resigned that position effective December 31, 2359, due to health reasons. And I would like to see someone step up and take over this and keep the RAC Awards going. I think it's a good program, and I hope someone will step right up.
And we thank you for everything that you've done for the program thus far. I mean, it's you know, it's not easy work, and it's great that it's done. And that is definitely on my list of things to do with this week at the next board meeting. Any idea of the cost of sending someone to the summer camp? No, we don't have that yet. However, that won't be too long in the coming. Once we have that information, it'll be published on the youthontheair.org website and on the RAC website. And we hope that information will come out as soon as possible so that people can start making plans.
Yeah, Phil, is there any chance of having the kids stay at the dorms there?
At the what?
At the dorms at the university instead of the hotels, because hotels in that area are very pricey.
No, that's the plan. No, they're staying on campus.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'm not subjecting anyone to Ottawa's hotel prices if I can help it. Are there any other questions? Mike Kennedy, I don't see a call sign, but go ahead, sir.
It's more of a comment I wanted to make to you afterwards, so I could probably do it offline if that's okay.
Yep, no problem. You can get a hold of me, president@rac.ca, or Twitter or Facebook or Semaphore Flags. I used to be able to read those. Any results on the survey recently held? No, because it's up until September 30th. Once that's done, I'm sure Dave, the E3KG, will happily put that data out as soon as we parse it, because it's got to go through a parsing process. Well, if there's nothing else, I would like to thank everyone for attending.
There is one more from Wayne. It says, has RAC assessed how many licensees are leaving the hobby each year through death or disinterest? We know we can no longer simply count issued call signs.
No, so current regulation is that unless you report your death to the regulator, you are licensed until you are 125 years old, which makes determining who's leaving the hobby by death really hard. We do have volunteers at RAC head office who get obituary reports and provide them to ISA to try to keep things clean. Now, I do believe that there are proposals to fix that, to change that. Those are going to be a while in the coming. And I just see someone, if you had a family member who died, if you email RAC, email the head office with a copy of their obituary, even if it's online, we have volunteers who go through those and who will pass them on to ISED, who will then release the call signs and then take them out of the database. It would be nice if there was a renewal process. That is something that is on the table, but that has to go through the policy and proposal process. As for amateurs who leave the hobby, who just leave, there's not much we can do because we don't know when they're leaving. When members leave, that's different. And yes, we do, we do try to follow up with members who don't renew. And if they come to us with issues of why they didn't renew, but that's more of membership, that's not the hobby. So that's what we can do that way. If anyone has any suggestions on something we can do otherwise, I'm happy to entertain. Not now, but I'm happy to entertain them. If you email that to me or if you email your regional director.
The E3 IPC question.
Go ahead, Mike.
What is the current membership?
It's a good question. Margaret, do we have a current number?
No, I don't currently have that. I'd have to get that from Adam, unfortunately.
Okay, that's something, Mike, I can get that to you. Glenn, I'm not sure if they need a formal. I didn't send, for example, when my Elmer died, I sent them a link to the obituary on the paper. They took it, and then they took it.
That's right. It has to be the newspaper printed obituary is good enough. I guess the one thing that I wanted to add is it needs to have the person's birth date. That's how I said no's for sure. That a name isn't sufficient.
Yes.
I know of a case where a club member had died a while before. They took a picture of his tombstone, and that wasn't sufficient because it didn't have the birth date.
Yeah. So.
Oh, one more thing while I've got here, I want to congratulate you on running on both for the conference and for the annual general meeting, Phil. Great job.
Thank you very much. I'm starting to see what you went through.
Phil, that's Mike IPC. I'll be going to be calling Adams tomorrow or Tuesday. I got to renew my membership, so I'll ask him the question as to what the membership is. Thanks.
No problem.
Good job, everybody, by the way, and hello to Glenn. I just heard him go by VE3 IPC.
Thank you. Now, I did see someone come up and say, do license growth numbers, paint an artificially rosy picture because it doesn't measure retention? Well, that shows me that people, because if I'm getting a number that says these many people passed their basic. So that tells me that number of people joined the hobby. So that's all I can measure right now. But that still shows the growth. In fact, that means that our growth number might actually be lower than we're reporting, because if there are 15,000 call signs in the database who are silent keys, then if I take those out of the measurement, all of a sudden my statistic might go to 2.2 or 2.3%. So it's not because of how our database is managed. It's not a perfect science. We try. So Dana, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Okay, Phil. Very good. I just had a couple of comments. One of them is tracking the growth of RAC. I just want to compliment you on the work that you're doing, because I think it's fabulous, and I really have to just doing a retrospective of when we started RAC. It just boggles my mind that RAC is still going and a going concern and growing and doing a great job. So congratulations, and I hope it carries on into the next century.
Thank you.
So when I have to renew my license and when I'm 125, I'm gonna.
It's interesting because I became a ham after the formation of RAC. So I have had no exposure to the CRRL or CARF other than the stories that I've been told sitting across a Tim Hortons or a barroom table.
Yeah.
So this is I'm fresh into this as far as I go.
No, this is great.
And thank you very much.
I do have an international question, and I know I've been receiving email from Ukrainian hams about contesting and recognition of Russian amateurs under sanctions. Globally, the Russian economy has been sanctioned, and they are asking for contest organizations that run contests to take steps to suppress Russian operators, to get the message across that this isn't a normal situation in the world right now. So I just want to pass that on to you guys to consider doing something with the RAC Winter Contest that would send that message. And I know other organizations have taken various steps to do that. And I just want to, you know, as a personal request, because I'm Ukrainian and background, and this has all become very personal for me, but I would ask that RAC consider some recognition of what's going on, and some way of getting that message across that contesting is not the current world situation is not a normal situation, and it's affecting everything, including contesting. So I'd like to put that to you, and I appreciate anything you guys can do.
I appreciate the comments, Dan. Thank you very much. I saw Graham Taplin had his hand up, or Sona. I think it was Graham.
It was, yep.
Graham, if you're still there, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's any amateur radio clubs in Milton, Ontario.
There is I'm speaking this just because I live up the road. There's the South Halton area Amateur Emergency Service Group, Sherry's. That would, I think, be the closest. I don't think there's an actual club in Milton, though. I think the closest club to you would be Oakville. Like in terms of being close. If someone suggested Kitchener-Waterloo ARC, they're close to. But like actually physically close to you, I think Oakville is the closest.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Not a problem, sir. Are there any other questions?
Mr. President, it's VO1HP. I have a question.
Go ahead, Frank.
Or not a question, observation. It has to do with RIC 3, information on the amateur radio service, which outlines how we handle ourselves with respect to our activities and our hobby of amateur radio. But right in the first paragraph of that document, it says, and this is in the preface where it says what the document is about. He said, it's important to note that these circulars have no status in law. They have no status in law. So I'm wondering if somebody could explain to me how we're supposed to react to that, and what does it mean? To me, it looks like a loophole. So I wonder if it could be a comment on that.
I think the best person to comment on that would be Dave Goodwin, VE3KG. Dave, are you in this room?
No, he's not. He actually had to go because he was teaching.
Okay. Is it a loophole? Absolutely, it probably is. However, I would also say that if the government has ever referred to that document in anything that they've done before, they have basically made that first comment null and void. All that we can do as amateurs, all that we can do as citizens and as residents, is follow the rules as they are given to us as plainly as, as best we can, and do our due diligence. And if we do our due diligence, the hope is that 9,999 times out of 100,000, we won't have a problem. Other than that, I would have to direct that question to Dave in Regulatory Affairs. And that is something I will do, and that might be a topic of one of his next regulatory roundup columns in TCA.
Glenn here, I could say something about that.
Go ahead.
Sometimes that kind of wording is used so that, and I think, I missed the particular reference, but I know, for example, the directions on examinations and such things. That kind of wording is used so that the regulator can make changes without a difficult legal process. And they, oftentimes you'll see these are provided for guidance and can be changed at any moment. So as long as those are the words that are written, we have to follow them. But it has to do with them not being something that would require a big legal process to change, like the regulations.
So basically, the government says we regulate spectrum. You can be a licensee. Here's your certificate holder and operator. Here are the rules. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer. I'm just going to follow the document that they give me. And if they ever come to my door and say, well, you should be doing this, so I'm going to say, well, your document said I can do this. I don't think they're going to come to me and say, well, you shouldn't do that because it says in law you can't do that. One of the things that RAC does is whenever there are changes to the RICs, the RICs, is we let everyone know. So if there are changes, we can go and say, these changes are here. But again, we're not, as someone just mentioned, we're not the regulator, we're not the writer. We're just here to inform the membership to say, hey, these changes have been made. But for the most part, if everyone just follows the rules, there's not a problem. At least that's always been my position on that. Is that okay for you, Frank?
That's okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
No problem, sir. Hillel Taylor, am I doing that properly?
You betcha. Victor Echo for Tango Papa.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm a life member of RAC. I was very interested in hearing the remark of the previous caller, second previous caller, regarding contesting rules. I think that we have to send a message to Russian hams to be on the side of democracy, and for that they should be temporarily suspended from in being involved in contests. I would like to see a survey done of all members at some point in the magazine to see how members feel about that. I want to get more active. I'm at that time now when I need my antenna worked on. This is my time for becoming very active. So I'll say thank you. I'm enjoying this very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. I appreciate them. Are there anyone else here who would like to have any comments, questions that like to make before I close? Hearing none.
Jason,
Jason,
yeah. Ken Olkey here, VE6AFO.
oh, hey, Ken.
I would be remiss not to, as a former president, not to say thank you for your leadership in RAC. It's been a long time, and Dana can relate. He and I go back to the former CRRL days. So RAC has come a long ways, and your leadership is much appreciated. Thank you, Jason.
I'm not Jason, I'm Phil.
I mean, Phil, how did I make?
Neither of us have hair. I get it. I understand.
Yeah, how did I make you Jason? I
all
had
good.
Jason on my mind.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Ken, and thank you for everything you do for amateur radio as well, and for your stewardship of the organization previous to me being here.
Thank you.
If there's anyone who ever has any questions about RAC, I encourage you to contact your regional director. Your regional directors are the ones they're like your MPs. They're the ones who are there to help you and to answer any questions you have, and to direct executive after to ask executive to help out when they can't answer your question. That's what they're here for. The executive are here to keep the trains running on time, and to like I said, our primary role is to interface with the government and protect what we have to make sure that we can all enjoy the hobby. If you aren't a member of RAC and you are you're into this, I encourage you to join. If you are a member of RAC, we thank you for the support you've given us. So with that, I would like to thank all the attendees. I would like to especially thank Trish Majan and Marcel Majan from MCI for hosting this for us today. I would like to thank Alan Griffin, who is RAC's Marketing and Communications Director, and Jason Tremblay, who is Community Services Officer, but also the person who was put in charge of organizing the conference today. Without their work, this wouldn't have happened. I very much look forward to seeing everyone again, and next year at RAC's 30th anniversary and our 30th AGM, which should have some surprises. With that, I will say 7-3, and thank you everyone for coming.